lot of damage on hospitals and primary health care were undertaken. Primary health care, mental health support, and mobile medical teams have been prioritized. Assistance for more than 1,000 trauma cases was provided, including through emergency medical teams. More than 1,000 surgical interventions were undertaken. Medical equipment and supplies, including PPEs, have been procured. The relocation of all medicines and supplies from the damaged MOPH warehouse in Karantina near the blast site has been completed. Stockpiling has been ensured in a safe and adapted location inside the Rafi Hariri University Hospital premises. Mobile medical units are being used as an outreach to target people with specific needs and older people mainly. Youth volunteers, including 300 mobilized by UNICEF, are removing debris across affected areas to facilitate people's return to their homes. Some emergency shelters kits are being distributed, while a limited number of temporary collective shelters have been set up. Assessments are ongoing in coordination with Beirut and Mount Lebanon, water establishment, to understand the impact on infrastructures. The port pumping station was reoperated by BML water establishment the day after the blast. Hygiene kits and baby kits are being distributed. Water tracking and dislodging is provided in LRC support points. WFP has allocated an additional 5,000 food parcels for families affected by the blast. Each parcel is sufficient to feed a family of 5 for 1 month. A number of local NGOs and CSOs are operating street kitchen and serving hot meals alongside many private initiatives. Work is ongoing to ensure all children who had been separated from their families in the blast have been reunited. Psychological support is available and being offered. ICRC is supporting families still searching for their loved ones. Excellencies, in the name of generosity, in the name of solidarity, everyone should stand behind the people of Lebanon. Those people who have welcomed Palestinian and Syrian refugees with open arms and open hearts for years and years deserve our full support. I thank you very much for your time and for this opportunity to share with you what I have been witnessing from the tragedy affecting the people of Beirut. Secretary General, Undersecretary Lowcock, Undersecretary Beasley, I take the opportunity also to thank you for the support that has come from the entire United Nations system towards the country team in Lebanon. This is as well the solidarity that has been expressed by countries around the world, has been heartwarming and a testimony that Lebanese are not left on their own. Let me echo what the Secretary General already said. The United Nations and its partners in Lebanon are here to stay and deliver. We owe it to the people of Lebanon. Thank you.
Thank you, Najat, very much indeed for your briefing and also for your leadership over the last week. I hope everybody knows that you're yourself by this explosion and your leadership has been outstanding in the way. I'm delighted now to be able to give the floor to Governor David Beasley, the Executive Director of the World Food Programme, who is also in Beirut today. It's somewhat esteemed. David.
Hey, and Mark, thank you very much. And Najat, it was good to hear from you because she and I met last night. Mark, I flew in yesterday afternoon because we were very concerned about the port. Everybody is. And obviously the devastation, everybody is seeing the devastation from the TV, from the news. And quite frankly, it is as bad as you can possibly imagine. But the but is we've got a lot of work to do. We've got to get that port operational quickly. In fact, as I was at the port this morning, yesterday, I was just at the airport a few minutes ago. We've had 3 flights come in of cargo for setting up temporary warehousing at the port. I met with the defense minister, so to speak, the president and other leaders. People on the street are mad. It really are. But it was also quite exciting to see the young people out in the streets cleaning up, helping one another. I was at one of our food kitchens that we're working and partnering. As Najat said, we've got right now 5,000 food baskets for 5,000 families. We've got another 150,000 ready to go to help the people in Lebanon, to help the people in Beirut. But here's what I'm very, very concerned about, because in about 2.5 weeks, you're running out of bread in this country. 85% of the food in this country is imported. 85% of the grain, the wheat, comes through the Beirut port. That's gone. And so what we've got to do, and this is why it was so exciting to be on the ground, to see the reality so that we can determine how we can get, at least on a temporary basis, part of the port operational for bringing in wheat, for bringing in the grains. And in fact, we've already diverted a ship. We will have 17,500 metric tons of wheat flour here within 2 weeks, and that's going to put bread on the tables of all the people in Lebanon, and that'll give us a bread supply for 20 days. While we're doing that, we've got a 30-day supply of about 30,000 metric tons of wheat that'll be bringing in, and then another 100,000 over the next 60 days after that. But to do some of this, we're going to need that port to be operational on a temporary basis. And that's why we're appealing to the donors to step up now. We're already getting the support that we believe that we need to set up temporary warehousing, to bring in mobile cranes, forklifts, generators, all of that. We should have operational, Mark, probably in about 2 weeks. I met with the president today and many of the cabinet ministers, as well as I said earlier, the defense minister, because it's critical that they understand that we need absolute cooperation right now, no obstacles, because the people on the streets were saying, we need your help. Please make certain that the aid comes directly to the people. And so at the port site, at the devastating site, we found a footprint that we can operate on a temporary basis. And so working with the Lebanese army, we believe we can clear part of that site, have it operational literally within 2 to 3 weeks, Mark. And so we're going to be airlifting in a lot of equipment. We're going to be doing everything we can. We're working with UNICEF, working with local NGOs, international NGOs, as well as civil society. And so while there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of suffering, there is also a lot of hope and opportunity. And Mark, this window we've got to take advantage of to help the people in Lebanon. They have suffered enough from already economic deterioration. Food prices have tripled in the last year, along with COVID, and now we got this devastation. But you know, the people in Lebanon, they're incredibly resilient. And so I'm hoping the international community will truly step up and let us work with the people here to bring hope and keep the suffering down to a complete minimum. So, Mark, turn it back to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, David. We turn now to Her Excellency Ambassador Anne Guégan, the Chargé d'Affaires for the mission of France. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, Lebanon is going through a crisis of exceptional dimension as the blast of last Tuesday came on top of an already very dire economic and social situation. And Lebanon is in need of urgent and sustained international support. We all stand in full sympathy, solidarity, and also in awe of the courage and resilience of the Lebanese people. We thank very much OCHA and the Lebanese Permanent Mission for organizing today's briefing, and are honored by the presence of the Secretary General, the participation of the executive directors of UNICEF and WFP, and by the presence of several distinguished foreign ministers, in particular from Algeria, Jordan, Egypt, and the Deputy Minister of Italy. Excellencies, as you know, after visiting Beirut on Thursday in the wake of the tragic explosions that took place Tuesday, President Macron took the initiative of organizing together with the United Nations a meeting, an international conference yesterday, which gathered world leaders and in order to express our joint support for the Lebanese people. From preliminary tally, it seems that more than 250 million euros were pledged yesterday in favor of the Lebanese people and all those affected by the tragic explosions last week. We, as France, express our full solidarity with the Lebanese people, and we are commending the UN system coordinated and direct response to the catastrophic events of last week. I think what has happened has shown, concretely the one UN in action, and we welcome particularly the leadership of OCHA and of the resident coordinator Najat Rushdie on the ground. For our part, France has organized 8 aerial rotations since last week, bringing medical teams and material as well as logistical assistance to the ground. 2 ships are on their way, and we have pledged more than 30 million euros in humanitarian relief, with an additional 63 million euros through the channel of EU funds. Excellencies, as the pen holder on Lebanon at the Security Council, France will also make sure that UNIFIL is in a position to support the efforts of the Lebanese to respond to this catastrophe. And to conclude, as the final statement of yesterday's international conference confirmed, the international community, Lebanon's closest friends and partners, will not let Lebanese people down. And you can count on France's continued engagement as we look forward to the consolidated needs assessment of the UN system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Now we move into statements from other member states. There are about 50 member states who have indicated that they would like to take the floor. And as it happens, we have about 50 minutes left of the allocated time for the meeting. So I hope the arithmetic is not too complicated. I'm delighted firstly to call on His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Egypt, Mr. Sameh Shukri. Excellency, please go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Secretary General Guterres, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Egyptian people and government, I would like to once again convey our deepest condolences to the families of the victims, as well as to the people of Lebanon, following the recent horrific explosions in the capital that ripped through the port area of Beirut. We are gathered today at the backdrop of, to say the least, another challenging situation facing our sisters and brothers in Lebanon, and to emphasize our commitment to support Lebanon at this difficult juncture in its response to this calamity. I would like to take, in this regard, to commend all who have taken the initiative to provide the necessary support to the Lebanese people and to the various agencies of the United Nations that are coordinating and providing the necessary assistance. The government of Egypt is undertaking to do its utmost to help the Lebanese people overcome the devastating impact of the explosions. Accordingly, an air bridge was established to provide the Lebanese people with the relief materials and medical teams in coordination with the Egyptian military field hospital that has been operating in Lebanon since 2006. Moreover, our embassy in Beirut is conducting field visits in coordination with the Lebanese authorities to identify the needs and possible response in different areas. To share, I would like to seize this opportunity to express our confidence in the resilience of the Lebanese people and their awareness of the volume of economic, social, and political challenges facing their country, which were exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent explosions. In this regard, we are certain that Lebanon and capabilities of the state's institutions and the government's response to the real needs and aspirations of the Lebanese people in a manner that would enhance their ability to overcome the challenges that they face and utilize efficiently the pledges and assistance that is provided now and in the future. To conclude, I would like to thank the Secretary General for this meeting and the Chair, UN Under-Secretary General Mr. Mark Lowcock, and OCHA for convening this meeting. I also reiterate our solidarity with the Lebanese people and our commitment to continuing doing our utmost to provide the needed assistance in such a critical circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I'm delighted to give the floor next to His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Jordan, Ayman Safadi. You have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Excellencies, dear friends, our heart goes out to our Lebanese brethren. They are in our thoughts, they are in our prayers as they face these tragic circumstances. We will be standing there fully with them, and we wish the injured a speedy recovery. Lebanon is facing a crisis of unprecedented proportions. The catastrophic explosion compounded an already overwhelming economic difficulties in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. We cannot leave Lebanon to face these challenges alone. International support is critical in helping our Lebanese brethren prevail over these difficult challenges. Today's meeting, coming one day after the international conference that His Excellency the French President Emmanuel Macron convened in cooperation with the UN, is a strong message that we stand with Lebanon and an important step to galvanize and coordinate support. We stand in full solidarity with our Lebanese brethren. A Jordanian field hospital is already on the ground in Beirut, and we will continue to send relief and medical supplies. As His Majesty King Abdullah II said yesterday, Lebanon's ordeal is our ordeal, and Jordan is ready to play its part by functioning as a launchpad and logistical hub to facilitate international and regional aid into Lebanon. Yesterday, I met with members of the UN family in the kingdom and informed them that Jordan will provide every support they need to facilitate their programs into Lebanon. And I reiterate, anything that Jordan has and you need, it's yours, so you can count on us for that. And I will be in Lebanon tomorrow, again, on behalf of His Majesty, to convey that message of solidarity and to coordinate with our Lebanese brethren how we can get the support that they need to them. We are confident that the great Lebanese people will overcome this crisis. Beirut has always been a beacon of stability and has repeatedly overcome challenges. The Lebanese people, with their strong determination, willpower, and resilience, will prevail once again. They will not be alone. We will be with them every step of the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, please, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iraq, His Excellency Mr. Fuad Hussein. Please go ahead.
Excellencies, at the outset, Iraq extends its condolences to our brother Lebanon, Lebanon, on the catastrophic explosion that befell the capital Beirut on Tuesday, August 4th, which have claimed the lives of many innocent civilians. The government and people of Iraq affirm their solidarity with their Lebanese brothers and sisters, expressing their deepest sympathies to the families of the victims and wishing the injured a speedy recovery. Your Excellencies, a wave of sadness has overshadowed the political, cultural, and public circles in Iraq. A painful incident that occurred in the capital Beirut is a humanitarian catastrophe which occurred in a country that is an Arab and global symbolic of culture and urbanization. Not to mention a great economic loss to Lebanon, which is already under difficult current circumstances. Here we call upon the international community and all friendly and brotherly countries to provide urgent support and by any means necessary to Lebanon to overcome this painful incident. My country, confirming its long-standing support to Lebanon in all international regional forums, consolidating the sincere brotherly bond between the two nations, despite the exceptional circumstances that Iraq is going through. Iraq has expressed its readiness for any assistance that our brothers in Lebanon deem necessary, and confirming that the Iraqi people stand with their brothers in Lebanon during this calamity. In this regard, and upon direction of the Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi, the Iraqi government dispatched immediately after the painful incident a high-level delegation headed by His Excellency the Iraqi Minister of Oil, the Deputy Minister of Health, accompanied by and a number of doctors in general and specialized surgery on a plane loaded with what amounts to 20 tons of medical and health materials, as well as fuel convoys, began to depart from Baghdad to Beirut across the Syrian border. We ask God to bring peace back to Lebanon and that the wounds may heal in the best way possible. we reaffirm the commitment of the Iraqi government to be a partner and the best aid to Lebanon in this ordeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, please, the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation from Italy, Madame Emanuela Del Rey. Please go ahead.
I wish to thank the Secretary General, and of course I thank you, Mark, and I also thank Naya for convening this timely meeting and for providing us with a very informative briefing. We really share your concerns. Dear friends, just the 4th of August has deteriorated the already dire humanitarian situation in the country. Every Italian has been shocked by the proportion of the catastrophe and is worried for the population. As a long-standing friend and partner of Lebanon, Italy has immediately responded to the most pressing needs. As other European Union partners did, we responded to the European Union Civil Protection Mechanism, and we organized, together with the Italian Civil Protection and the Ministry of Defense, 2 aid freights loaded with 8.5 tons of health supplies, surgical and trauma kits, and with a team of experts mixed with experts from the Army and the fire brigades, which are working on chemical, biological, and radiological and real studies, and on the assessment of instability of the building. The two teams are working in the field in coordination with the Lebanese authorities. We are willing, of course, to increase our response to the requests and the appeals of the United Nations agencies, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement in the coming days. We intend to approve in the coming days initiatives for about 12 million euros to be implemented by UN agencies and the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, including 1 million euro to be given to the Lebanon Humanitarian Fund. We are also constantly connected, of course, with the Italian NGOs on the field. What is more urgent now is our effective coordination and an effective needs assessment. We commend OCHA for monitoring the situation and humanitarian needs on the ground. We are encouraging at national level different sectors from civil society to provide assistance only in response to immediate and clear needs in order to avoid overlappings, which is a concern. We will consider further in-kind initiatives on the basis of the ongoing needs assessment. I just want to conclude by saying that Italy stands with the people of Lebanon. Dear friends, we have a huge responsibility. As our Premier Conte said yesterday, this anguishing event could be turned into an historical opportunity to rebuild unity within the country. It is to us not to miss this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, please, the Vice Minister, I beg your pardon, the State Minister for Foreign Affairs from Qatar, His Excellency Sultan bin Saad Al Maraiki. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mr. Chair, we appreciated the participation of His Excellency the Secretary General in this meeting to highlight the gravity of this disaster. On behalf of the State of Qatar, I would like first of all to present our deepest gratitude to His Excellency the Undersecretary Secretary General for convening and leading this conference at such short notice to highlight the gravity and the state of emergency caused by this disastrous accident. I would like at the outset to convey to the government and people of Lebanon our heartfelt condolences for the victims and our wishes for soon recovery for the injured. The unfortunate disaster comes at the time when the Lebanon is already facing severe circumstances and difficulties. It therefore needs the support of the international community to overcome this critical time. During the Virtual Donors Conferences convened yesterday and co-hosted by His Excellency the President of France and His Excellency the United Nations Secretary General, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Emir of the State of Qatar, emphasized the brotherly ties and solidarity with Lebanon and its people. On this occasion, His Highness announced a $50 million donation from Qatar toward the international community efforts to ease the impact of this disaster. Further participation in the international effort for reconstruction of Beirut will be determined. Within hours, other cargo airplane took off to Beirut carrying medical supplies, followed by more aircraft with equipment and installation of 2 complete field hospitals. As a search and rescue team consists of 50 experts from our internal security forces also headed to Beirut. A disaster like this is unfortunate, but will be overcome with the determination of Lebanese people and the support of the international community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, the United States, Ambassador Gareth Norman, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mark, very much. And I really appreciate the briefings by Najat and Governor Beasley. The U.S. government and the American peoples extend our deepest condolences to all those affected by this tragic event. We stand in solidarity with the people of Lebanon during this difficult time. The Lebanese people are among the most generous in the world. Over the last decade, they have welcomed over 1 million refugees just from Syria alone. And now we are committed to do all we can to help the Lebanese people in their hour of need. We recognize the urgent requirements for emergency medical support, shelter materials, psychosocial support, food assistance, and much more in the coming days. On Friday, the United States announced $17 million in funding for the emergency response. These funds bring the humanitarian aid provided by the American people in Lebanon since September 2019 to a total of $403 million. Initial U.S. aid includes 6 international emergency health kits that can support 60,000 people for 3 months. Our aid will also provide emergency food assistance for 50,000 households for 3 months. In addition to this first contribution, a U.S. team of disaster response experts has been deployed in support of the government of Lebanon and in coordination with the United Nations. We appreciate the UN's immediate release of money from the Central Emergency Response Funds and Lebanon's country-based pooled funds. The United States has long been a close partner with Lebanon, providing nearly $4.9 billion in bilateral assistance over the past 20 years, including more than $187 million for health assistance. The U.S. recently provided $41.6 million to bolster Lebanon's efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Our longstanding support to university hospitals in Lebanon include Rizq Hospital at the Lebanese American University and the American University at Beirut Medical Center. Both are serving as main triage centers for the victims of the explosion. These hospitals have already allocated space and resources for the response to the pandemic of COVID-19, especially for Lebanon's most vulnerable communities. In the days and weeks ahead, I want the Lebanese people to know the United States stands with them. We will remain committed to helping Lebanon recover from this tragedy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please, the United Kingdom, Ambassador Tom Woodroff.
Thank you very much, USG Lowcock, Excellencies, colleagues, good morning. And I'd like to begin by expressing our thanks to you, Mark, and to OCHA colleagues for convening today's briefing at short notice. And of course, to the Secretary General, the Resident Coordinator, and others for their comments and the extremely important and useful information that they have shared with us today. On behalf of the UK government and the British people, I wish to reiterate our deepest condolences to the people of Lebanon, colleagues in UNICEF and Esquire, and all those who lost family and friends in the awful tragedy that shocked all of us in the international community last week. We pay tribute to the swift and wide-ranging response of the UN system and the remarkable efforts of all the emergency responders who acted so quickly and so bravely in such incredibly challenging circumstances. The explosion has, of course, resulted in many tragic deaths and widespread destruction, as we have heard in such sobering detail this morning. But it has also brought into sharp focus the fact that many people in Lebanon were already suffering. They faced deep challenges before the blast, with the twin threats of COVID-19 and the worst economic outlook since the Civil War. The combined suffering has led to growing anger, which we have seen in the protests of recent days. It is essential that all parties avoid escalation and work to restore calm so as to avoid causing further pain and anguish. Yesterday, the UK government announced a package of £20 million to help provide for essential items for the most vulnerable in Lebanon, including those affected by the Beirut explosion and its aftermath. This is in addition to the £5 million already made available to the humanitarian response by the UK, including support through the British Red Cross for the emergency relief effort. We cannot, of course, discount the need for urgent humanitarian assistance in the months ahead to Lebanon's most vulnerable people, including the large Syrian and Palestinian refugee populations. But our collective approach and planning must also be long-term. Otherwise, we risk not addressing the pre-existing problems. We need to recognize what happened last week risks further accelerating the negative trends we have seen in recent months. Challenges will persist, and as we have heard this morning, secondary effects may well be greater in magnitude. The United Kingdom is a stalwart friend of the Lebanese people. Together, we have worked through many challenges in the past, but now really is the time to put the people of the country of Lebanon first. I assure you of our commitment to stand with them shoulder to shoulder over the weeks and months ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Turkey, Ambassador Korkut Gungun. Please go ahead. Korkut, you have the floor. Please go ahead.
Yes, I apologize, Mr. Lowcock. I apologize. Mr. Lowcock, Mr. Secretary General, President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, we would first like to thank the UN for convening this meeting. The assessments and information that you have shared with us is very useful and timely. What has happened in Beirut is grave and requires urgent attention of the international community. We stand in full solidarity with the Lebanese people. Following the phone conversation between President Erdogan and President Aoun immediately after the incident, we sent search and rescue as well as emergency medical teams to Beirut. Our initial assistance also includes field hospital emergency care units together with necessary medicines and medical supplies. We also delivered respiratory devices since the pandemic continues to pose a threat to Lebanon. Vice President Fuat Oktay paid a visit to the Lebanese capital together with Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu on 8th of August. As Vice President Oktay stated during the visit, Turkey's hospitals and air ambulances are at the service of Lebanon. Patients could be treated in Turkey if medical leave allowed. Lebanon can use Turkey's port of Mersin and Iskenderun until port of Beirut is rebuilt. He expressed Turkey's willingness to help rebuild Beirut port and nearby buildings as well. Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency brought around 400 tons of wheat to the Tripoli port to help with the food shortage. We are also willing to help open and operate a hospital with the capacity of 100 beds inside them. We will continue to send more aid, including medical and food assistance to Lebanon over the days to come. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you very much. Next, for the European Union, Ambassador Silvio Gonzalo. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mark, and let me join the Secretary General and other colleagues in expressing shock at the explosions that hit so hardly the heart of the city of Beirut. Maybe if colleagues could mute themselves, please.
Τέλεια. Πώς σου φαίνεται, σ' αρέσει?
Maria, could you mute yourself? President Charles Michel was in Beirut on Saturday and conveyed Europe's condolences to the victims and their families, and also a message of solidarity to the people of Lebanon. Mark, as you and other speakers have already said, this tragic incident comes on top of a series of pre-existing crises. Lebanon was already experiencing a difficult economic, financial, and political crisis, which was fueling social unrests, with the COVID-19 outbreak only further exacerbating the difficult situation. So we welcome the rapid needs assessment that you have conducted, OCHA has conducted, despite the challenging situation on the ground. However, the needs are evolving and increasing by the hour. Hospitals are reportedly unable to cope with the numbers of casualties. Ambulances are incapable of reaching the wounded because of the debris obstructing the way. Toxic material is released in the air. And on top of this, at least 300,000 people have now lost their home or their businesses. And several dozens are still unaccounted for, and are feared dead. The EU has immediately strengthened its humanitarian team in Beirut after the disaster, also in order to support the work that the UN and the Lebanese authorities are conducting in this respect and help identify additional support. As Presidents Michel and von der Leyen have stated, the EU stands by the Lebanese people and has immediately made available its support. As an immediate step, we activated the EU civil protection mechanism. 6 search and rescue teams from our member states have been deployed to Beirut, and we now have a total of 250 EU rescuers on the ground. In addition, 10 member states have also provided material assistance and other bilateral support. We've also deployed a EU civil protection team of 17 staff specialized in health, logistics, structural engineering, environmental disaster, and waste management. Our people are in Beirut, helping to save lives in a coordinated manner. The EU does not want to stand idle. We already have mobilized 33 million euros from various instruments to address the first emergency needs, to provide medical support and equipment and protection of critical infrastructure. We've also made available 2 million euro for emergency relief in the shelter and water and sanitation sectors for the newly displaced. And yesterday, at the international conference convened by our French friends and by the UN, we announced up to 30 million euro in additional EU humanitarian aid and have initiated the necessary procedure to ensure the release of these additional funds. So we are ready also to do our part in providing mid and long-term assistance to Lebanon, especially recovery and reconstruction. We will, as usual, engage in post-disaster needs assessment alongside the UN and the World Bank. And let me conclude, Mark, by expressing our appreciation for extending the deployment of your UN disaster assessment and coordination expert in the Beirut office. We feel that the coordination with donors is satisfying, but we will encourage OCHA to allow for a more strengthened participation in the technical coordination structures. To conclude, we fully stand with Lebanon and will continue helping to alleviate the suffering of the affected Lebanese people, fulfilling this humanitarian imperative for our common humanity and EU solidarity. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Next, for the League of Arab States, Under Secretary General, His Excellency Haifa Abu Ghazaleh. Sir, please go ahead.
Excellencies, I don't know if you heard my voice.
Madam, yes, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Excellencies, within the framework of the rapid response of the League of Arab States to this terrible humanitarian catastrophe, the Arab League Secretary General, Mr. Abul Gheit, calls for the Arab states, international community, as well as Arab and international relief aid agencies to exert every effort to confront this terrible catastrophe, and calls for an immediate Arab action in this regard, and urged all the social and economic affairs sectors of the League of Arab States to take the necessary action in coordination with all relevant Arab and international organizations. To that end, I participate today in this important meeting to affirm full support of the appeal launched by Lebanon aimed at securing the necessary assistance to face the humanitarian, social, and economic impact. In this context, the League of Arab States Secretary General made a visit to Lebanon, accompanied by a high-level delegation, and met with His Excellency the President of Lebanon and the Chair of Parliament, and so many people in Lebanon. In addition to this, visiting the Beirut place. Within this framework, and in my capacity as head of technical secretariat of specialized Arab ministerial councils of the health and social affairs, youth and sports field and population, I would like to note that coordination is going to adopt urgent resolution, provide the necessary health, humanitarian, and social assistance need for the Lebanese brothers. I would like also to refer in this context to the Arab states and all the world to send medical humanitarian aid to Lebanese people and provide urgent assistance to affected people. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, for the International Committee of the Red Cross, Director General Robert Mardini.
Thank you, Mark. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this important event on Lebanon. As you may know, from the very first minutes after the tragic explosions in Beirut last week, partners in the Red Cross Red Crescent movement were responding to the situation, working robustly in a coordinated way. The Lebanese Red Cross, or LRC, led the way, mobilizing hundreds of staff and volunteers, deploying dozens of ambulances, establishing first aid stations, organizing blood donations, and giving support wherever support was needed. The International Federation has subsequently launched an emergency appeal in support of the LRC, and as a whole, the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement is seeking 40 million euros to support the immediate humanitarian response. At the ICRC, we've worked closely with our colleagues in the National Society, pooling national resources and expertise. We're providing emergency medical supplies to 12 hospitals, supporting specialist centers for those with lower limb injuries, providing food and cash assistance to the most vulnerable, and we continue to search for the missing and support in the dignified management of the dead. Along with the LRC, we're assessing needs in the fields of health, protection, and the provision of water services and livelihoods. And we shouldn't underestimate the psychosocial impact on the people of Beirut. As the Red Cross Red Crescent movement has come together, so it's vital that we in the international community do the same to show that Lebanon does not stand alone. The conference hosted by President Macron yesterday was a welcome start. Participants agreed on the importance of providing assistance in a timely and efficient way, consistent with the needs of the Lebanese people and directly to the people themselves. Excellencies, we all know the severe challenges that Lebanon is facing and has faced for some time. The country is in an extremely fragile state, and whatever the politics of the situation, there is no doubt that the humanitarian situation requires immediate, sincere, and wholehearted support right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, speaking about the Arab group, the government representative of Oman, His Excellency Ahmed Al-Hassan. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm delivering the statement on behalf of the Sultanate of Oman. There are Arab ministers who already spoken. Today, we stand united in solidarity and sympathy with the government and people of Lebanon. The message coming out of this meeting, Lebanon, you know, the whole world is with you. You grief and determination to overcome this calamity. The stability of Lebanon is and will remain of paramount importance to regional and international security. The world will not let this bastion of freedom and enlightenment slip into instability. The government and people of the Sultanate of Oman feel the pain of the Lebanese brethren and will spare no possible effort to stand with them. In conclusion, allow me to add my voice to those who have spoken before me, calling on the international community to stand solid and firm with Lebanon in its effort to rebuild and mend broken souls. The ambassador of Lebanon and Mandari, we are with you the long haul, and we will stay with Lebanon the long course. My last word to the city of peace, Beirut, and the Lebanese people. You will triumph. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, Ireland, Ambassador Geraldine Byrne-Mason. go ahead.
I also want to say a particular thank you to the Secretary General and all the briefers this morning for the extraordinary comments that we have heard in very difficult circumstance. Ireland and Lebanon have a special bond that has grown really over the last 40 years with Irish women and men on the ground in Lebanon as peacekeepers. And that, I think, has given birth to a relationship that's sincere, and I would say to an affection. And I just want to reassure Amal and all our Lebanese friends that that relationship will now see Ireland stand shoulder to shoulder with you at a time when you most need our friendship. We know, and we've heard this morning, that what you need immediately is practical support on the ground. The Irish Foreign Minister, Simon Coveney, this week spoke of our sympathy, of course, for the families involved and for all of those injured. We know it's a practical and immediate support you need on the ground. So we are in Ireland at the moment preparing a major delivery of medical equipment and PPE, which will arrive on the ground very soon. We salute all those who are working on the ground with you, but we recognize, of course, as others have said this morning, this is a complex challenge. The explosion came on top of other pre-existing challenges for Lebanon. I wanted to salute in particular the people of Lebanon who are continuing to host generously over 1 million Syrian refugees despite all other challenges. And we will stand steadfast in our support to you, Lebanon, in those challenges. This year, we've already directly supported you with €3.5 million in humanitarian assistance. And that includes funding we're now today repurposing to respond to the immediate aftermath of the explosion. And in the past few days, we have also given new emergency funding to our non-governmental organizations who are working on the ground to help. I want to say that in that we are paying particular attention to those who are the most vulnerable. We have heard great detail this morning from the UN agencies about the work underway. I want to underline that again, women and young women, women and girls in particular, tend to be the most vulnerable in these immediate aftermath situations. So we will pay particular attention to that. As a member of the European Union, obviously Ireland is fully contributing to the support you just heard outlined by Silvio for the European Union, over 60 million euros, but also support in a practical way, medical equipment and protection of critical infrastructure. As I conclude, I wanted Mark also to say that as a consistent supporter of the SURF, we're very happy to see the announcement of SURF response to Lebanon, and to reassure all of you as I speak that Ireland will be steadfast in its support to Lebanon in the coming days. We know this is an immediate situation we're facing, but as others have said, there is a more medium-term solidarity that we will bolster as we work together with you. Thank you very much indeed, Mark.
Thank you. Next, Denmark, Ambassador Martin Biller Herman.
Thank you, Mark, and colleagues for your briefings, and a special thank you to my colleague and friend, the Ambassador of Lebanon to the UN, Amal. We stand with you not just today, but tomorrow and the days that follow. And let me then, on behalf of Denmark, reiterate our condolences and sympathies to the victims, the survivors and their families, and indeed to the people of Lebanon in these difficult times. Now, the Lebanese people have for decades showed what solidarity in action looks like. And we must now show that we, the friends of Lebanon, understand that words of compassion must be followed by acts of solidarity. And the UN is a vehicle for solidarity in action, and we appreciate greatly the UN's rapid response to the crisis, and we applaud the dedicated staff on the ground in Beirut. Now, the rapid allocations from the UN Central Emergency Response Fund and the Lebanese Humanitarian Fund, which Denmark are proud supporters of, once again highlight the importance of giving UN flexible tools for providing immediate support. Denmark fully supports the One UN approach and the ongoing UN-wide coordination of humanitarian assistance. But it is also important that the UN country team, and indeed all of us, continues to work with the World Bank and other partners to support longer-term recovery in Lebanon on a sustainable path to development and progress, as my colleague and friend Amal highlighted. Now, yesterday, the Danish Minister for Foreign Affairs announced that Denmark will contribute with an additional 150 million Danish kroner, $24 million in support to Beirut and the Lebanese people for the emergency phase. but also for the longer journey of recovery. This comes on top of the ongoing cooperation and the $2 million which was announced immediately after the disastrous blast, and of course, in addition to our contribution to the through the European Union. I want to say that at the end that we join others in active solidarity with the Lebanese people in this tragedy. You are not alone, not today, not tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to give you an update on the time situation, we have a bit less than 15 minutes left now on the originally budgeted time, and there are 35 of you, delegations, which would like still to take the floor. So we would appreciate it if you could be brief, please. Next, please, for Q8, Ambassador Mansour Al-Utaibi.
Thank you very much, Mark, for giving me the floor, and thanks you and OCHA for organizing and convening this important and timely briefing. And I would like also to acknowledge the participation of the BGA and the SG and thank them for their briefing. I would like to join others in expressing or extending our deepest and most sincere condolences to Ambassador Amal and the families of the victims and all our brothers and sisters in Lebanon and the Lebanese diaspora in Kuwait and around the world, in light of the tragic explosions in Beirut last Tuesday. We continue to pray for the many families who are still searching for missing loved ones and wish a full and speedy recovery to all those injured during the blast. We thank OCHA for the latest situation report on Lebanon that was published on Friday, which provides details of the humanitarian response following the explosions. It is important to note that the report also highlights the current health, shelter, logistical, and protection needs required based on initial damage assessments conducted by the United Nations. As Lebanon slowly attempts to recover from this devastating incident, while also fighting the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and other challenges, the state of Kuwait remains steadfast in its commitment to support the country and its people during this difficult time. Following Tuesday's tragic explosions, His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince of Kuwait, Sheikh Nawaf Ahmed al-Jabr al-Sabah, issued immediate nationwide instructions to provide humanitarian aid and assistance to our brothers and sisters in Lebanon. During yesterday's International Aid Conference to support Lebanon, organized by France and the UN, His Highness the Prime Minister of Kuwait, Sheikh Sabah al-Khalid al-Ahmed al-Sabah, reiterated Kuwait's readiness to support Lebanon through contribution made via the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, totaling $30 million, which will be contributed with the Lebanese authorities to support food security, in addition to urgent medical and food aid in the amount of $11 million, alongside donations from local Kuwaiti charities. Also, since the instructions issued by His Highness the Crown Prince, the Kuwait Red Crescent Society has been dispatching ongoing aid, medical supplies, and food assistance to the Lebanese Red Cross Air Bridge in cooperation with the government entities, including Kuwait's Ministries for Foreign Affairs, Health, and Commerce. In this vein, we recognize and value the assistance and contributions provided by other countries and organizations, and urge the rest of the members of the international community to step up and support the people of Lebanon during these challenging times. We know that the people of Lebanon are strong and resilient, and they will overcome together to rebuild and overcome this tragedy, as they have done many times before. However, bearing in mind the scale of devastation we have witnessed as a result of these explosions and the existing challenges brought on by the current pandemic, they cannot and should not have to do this alone. Concluding my remarks, with hundreds of people killed, over 6,000 injured, and more than 150 others who remain missing, international solidarity and support is crucial and necessary. Ambassador Amal and all our Lebanese brothers and sisters in Lebanon, Kuwait, and around the world. As you know, our two countries and peoples have always shared deep, long-standing, and unbreakable ties. The state of Kuwait has long been home to thousands of Lebanese citizens who have greatly contributed to the growth, culture, and prosperity of Kuwait. We will continue to stand by and support you in any way that we can as you work to rebuild your beautiful country. Thank you very much.
Next for Japan, please, Ambassador Kimihiro Ishikani.
Well, thank you, Mark. I would like to express deep condolences and sympathy to the people of Lebanon. Well, I would like to also stress Japan's unwavering solidarity with the people of Lebanon, together with other players of the international communities. So the government of Japan decided to provide emergency relief goods to Lebanon on the 7th of August, including tents, sleeping pads, and blankets, and so forth. But I would also like to stress that Japan is continue to commit to meet humanitarian needs on the ground. Japan has always stood by Lebanon in times of difficulty in the past. We did so when Lebanese faced massive influx of refugees, and this year Japan provided $10 million to Lebanon to help alleviate the economic crisis, and also provided emergency assistance for COVID-19 response. To conclude, Japan is committed to continuously support Lebanon to build back better, not only from the recent tragic incident, but also from the persistent socioeconomic difficulties that have been weighing heavily on the people of Lebanon. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Next for Bahrain, Ambassador Jamal Al-Rawai. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for this timely and important briefing. The Kingdom of Bahrain stands in solidarity with the brotherly people of Lebanon during this difficult time and remains ready to offer support and assistance to Lebanon to overcome the devastating consequences of this humanitarian disaster. Upon the directives of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa to provide emergency humanitarian relief aid to Lebanon to help alleviate the suffering of its people in the wake of the tragic incident, the Royal Humanitarian Foundation, led by His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, His Majesty's representative for humanitarian work and youth affairs, and in coordination with the relevant authorities, delivered the first consignment of aid containing necessary medical supplies to Lebanon last Friday. Along with this medical assistance, a dedicated team from Bahrain traveled to Lebanon to examine the urgently needed support at this stage. We will continue to explore further venues of cooperation and other humanitarian initiatives as we stand by Lebanon, a country with which we share strong historic and brotherly ties in order to rebuild Beirut. We will also continue to closely follow all Arab regional and international efforts to respond to this tragedy. Finally, may I take this opportunity to reiterate Bahrain's deepest sympathies and heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims and the government of Lebanon, along with the hope and that those injuries will make a full and speedy recovery. And thank you again.
Thank you. Next, Switzerland, Ambassador.
Thank you, Mark. I hope. Yes, thanks indeed, Mark and Najat and Ambassador Amal for bringing us together to show solidarity and support to Lebanon in this time of need. Quickly, some points. Switzerland has a long-lasting history with Lebanon. Over 80 years, we follow Lebanon on its way to prosperity and support it in its time of crisis. We also stand with Lebanon in this hour. Switzerland could already deploy over 24 of its staff to Lebanon in terms of medical support and shelter, which are our focus. I'm happy to announce that Switzerland will commit a minimum of 4 million Swiss francs for this response. And we will look, of course, constantly into other or new needs that arise and will be ready to support. The last point for Switzerland is very important. We recall that now the Lebanese people take to the streets in their thousands and cry their anger and request answers from the government because they feel abandoned by their political class. At a time when the international community is showing a surge of support with Lebanon, we call on the Lebanese government to respond to the call of its people and to respond to these call for reforms, particularly at a time when its population is battered by already an enormous economic crisis. We thank very much and stand ready to support further. Thank you. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you. Now the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, Secretary General Jagan Chapagain. Jagan. Jagan Chapagain, can you hear us? Please go ahead. Okay, I think we have a problem with the IFRC, so I'm going to, while we try to fix that, turn now to India. Permanent Representative Ambassador Tirumarti, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the government and people of India, I would like to convey our deep condolences to the people and the government of Lebanon on this terrible human tragedy. We are shocked by the loss of human lives and the widespread destruction. Having paid an official visit to the beautiful city of Beirut last year, it is difficult for me to imagine that this vibrant city has been affected by the blast. I admire the resilience of the people and the dedication of the rescue workers to cope with this tragedy. As a country with which India has had traditionally close and historical relations, including through our peacekeepers in UNIFIL, I would like to express our solidarity with Lebanon at this juncture. India has just recently sent Lebanon essential medical items to combat COVID-19. We are immediately sending more relief and humanitarian material of medicines, foodstuff, and other essential items to do whatever we can to alleviate the difficulties on the ground. We are in discussion with the government of Lebanon on how we can contribute further and provide additional support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next for Australia, from Geneva, Ambassador Sally Mansfield.
Thanks very much indeed, Mark. And Australia certainly welcomes your leadership of OCHA and that of the humanitarian coordinator, so necessary for Lebanon at this time. The Australian government and people send their deep condolences to all those mourning the terrible tragedy in Beirut. Australia has a long history of support to Lebanon. Since 2017, we've provided over $90 million in humanitarian assistance. But of course, in the immediate aftermath of this explosion, Australia announced $2 million Australian dollars through the World Food Programme and the Red Cross movement. Yesterday at the international conference, Australia was pleased to announce a further funding of $3 million Australian dollars. And we stand ready to provide more in response to requests. Australia will also release humanitarian supplies through the UN Humanitarian Response Depot in the region. But certainly looking ahead, there are immense political, economic, humanitarian challenges, not just pre-existing oil and COVID, but now exacerbated by the explosions. So the international community will certainly need to remain steadfast in its support of Lebanon as we help it recover from this latest tragedy. But again, our sincere thanks to all of those rescue workers who are responding immediately and who will continue to do on into the future. Thanks so much indeed.
Next, Finland, Pilvi Taipale.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank the Secretary General and you, Mark, and all the briefers for this update. And thanks for the UN fast response and coordination in Lebanon. Lebanon has indeed been hit by a crisis on top of a crisis on top of a crisis, and Finland is committed to assist. We have contributed €1 million for the ICRC operation in Lebanon, and as part of the European Civil Protection Mechanism, we have sent a Finn Rescue technical assistant and support team to support the European Civil Protection Team, as well as material aid, including medical and hygiene supplies. As others have already commented, I would like to highlight also here the importance of SURF and other flexible humanitarian funding, which is essential in this kind of sudden crisis. And Another issue that was also mentioned by a couple of colleagues is the importance of women and girls and persons with disabilities, who are often the hardest hit in any humanitarian crisis. We will also follow closely on how the response will continue in that respect. But thank you, Mark and others, very much for this briefing.
Thank you. Next, the Netherlands, Ambassador Karel van Oostrom.
Thank you very much, Mark, for hosting this meeting. The people of the Netherlands stand with the people of Lebanon in this moment of tremendous loss and pain, with so many lives lost and people affected. We share in this pain as our colleague Hedwig Waldmans-Molier also passed away as a result of the blast. She was the wife of the Dutch ambassador in Lebanon. We pay tribute to her as a special person, as a wonderful colleague, and as a friend of Lebanon and of the Lebanese people. Mark, the Netherlands is doing what we can in helping the people of Lebanon. We immediately deployed an urban search and rescue team. Minister Kaag has made €4 million available for emergency. Made available for an independent judicial investigation as a cause of the blast. The third point will support fully political and economic reform in Lebanon, and the calls of the people of Lebanon potential additional support. Tribute to the people of Lebanon, transparency and accountability, and for fighting corruption must be needed. Reform is a precondition for substantial additional donors, especially in the times of all the refugees who have come, as Geraldine already mentioned, and we feel very strongly that the long-suffering people of Lebanon deserve our full support as well. They deserve a substantial reaction from the international community and also from their own government and their representatives.
Thank you. Now, New Zealand, Ambassador Craig Hall.
Thank you, Mark. And thanks to you and to all the briefers this morning. New Zealand, along with the rest of the world, has been shaken by the events in Beirut on the 4th of August. And we stand in solidarity with the people of Lebanon. The New Zealand government has immediately made a contribution of $500,000 New Zealand to the Red Cross movement for its activities in Lebanon. And I really want to acknowledge the rapid action taken by the United Nations in response to the situation on the ground, including rapid provision of search support. And this is impressive given the limitations created by COVID-19. I also welcome the announcement by UMAC of a 6-year SURF allocation to Lebanon. And as a donor to SURF, New Zealand values the rapid response of the fund. And it truly shows the value of collectively. We are concerned about the well-being of the most people in Lebanon, and this includes a significant number of Syrian and Palestinian refugees and their host communities. We look forward to continued updates on the implications for wider regional humanitarian operations. And finally, Mark, let me acknowledge the resilience of the Lebanese people. The New Zealand people stand with the people of Lebanon, and we urge a continued, coordinated and collective action by the international community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, I think we can return to the International Federation for the Red Cross and Red Crescent. Jack again, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. You hear me this time?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will make a very quick points, 3 points. First, we are very, very glad that we have a very strong local Red Cross, Lebanese Red Cross, who have been leading the efforts from the minute go. And they mobilize ambulances, the emergency medical teams, and have been leading the Red Cross Red Crescent efforts at the national level. The second point, as an international federation, we moved very quickly. We released 750,000 from our disaster relief emergency fund within a couple of hours. And yesterday, we also managed to launch an international appeal asking for 20 million as part of a broader 40 million Red Cross Red Crescent movement appeal to support the Lebanese Red Cross. And we heard many of you really keeping in mind the special needs of the women and children as we go with the response and recovery. And the third point I wanted to highlight is, we are very committed to working together within the Red Cross Red Crescent family as a Red Cross Red Crescent movement, but also closely coordinate with the UN family in the country and, of course, with many other partners. It's extremely important that we all come together and join our forces if we are to respond to this crisis. With these 3 points, I would like to give the rest of my time to the Secretary General of the Lebanese Red Cross, who has been on the ground and leading the efforts from the day one. So I'm really, really pleased that he could join us in this conversation today. So George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jagan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt condolences to all the governments whose citizens have been affected and continue to be affected by this tragedy. I would like also to thank you for your concern regarding this new disaster and all the support received or announced until now. Since the very first moment of the explosion, the Lebanese Red Cross mobilized and deployed its emergency medical teams and ambulances across the affected areas of Beirut. We are still on the ground, working around the clock. During the explosion, we have transported and treated over 2,000 injured men, women, and children of 5,000, collected blood units and distributed to injured people, identified shelters ready to be used, addressed households in need of food, hygiene, and shelter kits. We provided psychosocial support services to survivors. Mobile clinics are on the field and provided medical social services. The Lebanese Red Cross has the capacity to support more than 10,000 families initially. This explosion adds to the multifaceted crisis in Lebanon. We were tested hard before this disastrous event. However, now we are facing an unprecedented level of combined needs and challenges set in the midst of a pandemic. To this end, the Lebanese Red Cross launched on a preliminary appeal seeking $19 million for the immediate 3 months to respond to the magnitude of this emergency. With this support, we will be providing emergency medical services, blood transfusion, primary health care, shelter, and we will respond to the basic needs of affected people. The initial 3 months appeal will be revised in the near future and in parallel with the IFRC, International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, multilateral appeal. I would like to thank all the partners and donors that reached very quickly after the explosion on Tuesday and who inquired with us what the needs of the Lebanese people are and offered support accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, Algeria, Ambassador Sofiane Mimouni, please.
Thank you, Mark. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of my Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Sabri Boukadoum, who was present this morning at this briefing, but had to leave for a cabinet meeting. Allow me at the outset to express my heartfelt condolences to the people and government of Lebanon and to the families of the victims following the terrible blast that occurred on August 4th at the port of Beirut. We have been deeply touched by the devastating toll of this horrific explosion that shook the Lebanese capital. I would like to thank the Secretary General and the President of the General Assembly for their presence and their statement, which reflect the United Nations preparedness and reactivity to assist the countries facing unexpected events with dramatic humanitarian consequences. As we are closely following the humanitarian situation in Lebanon, we know that beyond the death and injuries, some 300,000 people have been displaced from their homes. An already overwhelmed health system is now being stretched to breaking point, and the supply chains have been severely damaged, rendered partially inoperable. Global support and solidarity are therefore required to overcome the tragedy facing the Lebanese people. In this regard, His Excellency Mr. Abdelhamid Tebboune, President of Algeria, assured his Lebanese counterpart of Algeria's full solidarity in this painful ordeal and its readiness to respond to the needs expressed to mitigate the scale of the disaster. To this end, Algeria has established on August 6th an air and sea bridge involving 4 flights and a maritime link in order to help the Lebanese government to face this humanitarian emergency. The humanitarian operation conducted by Algeria consisted of 4 airplanes, respectively loaded with medical and pharmaceutical supplies, 200 tons of livelihood and foodstuffs, tents, blankets, and shelters, and Algerian teams of 20 doctors and 12 surgeons, 15 experts in disaster management, and 5 rescuers and civil protection personnel. In addition, a vessel carrying construction materials has also been shipped to help rebuild what was destroyed by the explosion. Finally, Algeria has provided the Lebanese armed forces with a military field hospital and a medical team to contribute to the relief efforts and the necessary recovery response. These are the immediate actions taken by Algeria supporting Lebanon at this difficult juncture, and we will remain by the side of our Lebanese sisters and brothers as they work to heal and rebuild their cities. I would like to conclude by reiterating Algeria's readiness to work with the international community to keep identifying the way and means to support urgent needs and continue to offer emergency support, including medical aid, food, and shelter to the brotherly people of Lebanon. And I thank you.
The Secretary General has had to leave us for other commitments. There are another 25 delegations who'd like to take the floor, and I would ask you again, please, to be as concise as possible. Next, for Mexico, Ambassador Juan Ramon de la Fuente.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you to the briefers. I would like to express Mexico's deepest condolences to the Lebanese people and the Lebanese government. In solidarity to our Lebanese friends, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mexico has committed a modest sum of resources, provided our capabilities, but leaving no doubts that we join the international efforts to support Lebanon to build back better and stronger. The large Lebanese community in Mexico is also working and is on its way to provide further support, and it will be a continuous effort supervised by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I have no doubts that the Lebanese people will stand together with courage and determination to overcome the effects of this tragedy, and we encourage OCHA and all humanitarian partners to continue to mobilize effective assistance to support Lebanon. You can count on Mexico to this effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Greece, Ambassador Maria Theophili. Greece, please, you have the floor. Okay, so we'll move on and try and see if we can fix that issue. We move to Salvador.
Can you hear me?
Ambassador Theophili, please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for convening this and hosting this timely meeting. I wish also for my part to extend our heartfelt condolences and profound sorrow to the Lebanese people and to reiterate our solidarity with Lebanon. At this difficult time, it is important that we show and enhance our solidarity, unity, and assistance to those in need. and it is in that spirit that Greece was the first European Union country that sent on August 5th, upon the request of Lebanon and via the European Union Civil Protection Mechanism, a medium urban search and rescue team consisting of 12 people and a dog, 2 vehicles and equipment to Beirut. The team was accompanied by the Greek Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs for Economic Diplomacy and Openness, who visited Beirut on August 5th and witnessed firsthand the enormity of this disaster. In addition, yesterday, a Greek naval ship sailed to Beirut, transferring medical personnel and 4 tons of medical and pharmaceutical supplies, blankets, PPE, etc. Lastly, for his part, the Greek Prime Minister participated in yesterday's National Conference on Support to Beirut and the Lebanese people. In my effort to be brief, I would like to conclude by stressing that Greece stands by Lebanon, our long-standing close friend and neighbor, and its people. My country is ready to assist with all available means. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, El Salvador, Ambassador Griselda Lopez.
Thank you so much, Mark, for giving me the floor. I would like to thank OCHA for convening this meeting and the important briefing provided. And also thanks to Ambassador Amar for her powerful message. On behalf of the Salvadoran government, I would like to express our deepest condolences to Lebanon and our solidarity to the families of the victims, those injured, and people left without a home due to the explosions. We are aware that the incident of last week worsens the already dire situation in Lebanon. We commend the efforts of the international community to support Lebanon, and as other speakers have mentioned, the world stands with you. Geographically, El Salvador is far away from Lebanon, but my country has been close by contributing to peace efforts by our participation in UNIFIL. We will continue standing close to you in these difficult circumstances. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Hungary, Ambassador Catalin Pogba.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary General. Thank you very much for this very important meeting. My dear friend, Sister Amal, we stand with you.
Context?
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So Hungary has traditionally been committed to supporting Lebanon's economic and political stability, and the preservation of which is of utmost importance for the stability of both the region and Europe. And in this light, Hungary has been highly committed to providing urgent needs-based assistance to Lebanon during the tragic crisis. On the suggestion of my Prime Minister, 1 million euros we sent to the Syriac Maronite Church of Antioch. And we sent also, as a manifestation of our solidarity, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade decided to send a very special team of doctors, medical experts with 200 kilograms of medical equipment and aid to the country, and also a team of Hungary's University of Debrecen is providing aid for nearly 1 week in Beirut. We really stand with you. We will be there throughout the way, and of course we align ourselves with the statement of the European Union, what we just heard at the beginning of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Ambassador Margarian. Please go ahead.
Right. Just when we listen to the Undersecretary General Lowcock, I would like to express my gratitude to you and OCHA for organizing this briefing on the humanitarian situation in Lebanon. I also highly appreciate the intervention by the Secretary General Guterres and the briefers for their remarks. I wish to express my deepest and heartfelt condolences to my colleague and friend, Ambassador Ahmed on the tragedy that befell Beirut. For all this, our thoughts and prayers go out to the families and friends, to all those who perished, and we wish speedy recovery to the injured. Immediately after receiving the news on the explosion in Beirut, the government of the Republic of Armenia has expressed readiness to provide emergency assistance. In his phone conversation with the president of Lebanon, Michel Aoun, the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, has pledged to provide targeted assistance to the government and the people of Lebanon. Special flights with plane load of medication, foodstuff, and other vital supplies have been already deployed to the Lebanese capital, and the government of Armenia has arranged for further delivery of humanitarian aid. Lebanon is home to one of the well-established Armenian communities, and Beirut has long been the center of cultural life of the Armenian diaspora, which has also suffered human losses and significant distractions. Numerous Armenian organizations, including the Hayastan All Armenian Fund, have opened special accounts for money transfers and established online fundraising platforms for individual donations to assist the brotherly people of Lebanon and contribute to the recovery of Beirut. At this difficult time, Armenia stands in solidarity with Lebanon, and we urge for a robust international humanitarian action to address the impacts of tragedy. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Austria, Ambassador Alexander Marshek.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And as previous speakers, I would also like to express my deepest sympathies to the people of Lebanon after the terrible explosion in Beirut last Tuesday. And I'd like to begin also by formally conveying the condolences to the victims' families and to wish a full recovery to those injured. Sincere sympathies also go to Ambassador Amal Halali. You've asked us to be brief, so just 2 points. The first is thanks, Mark, to you and your team for convening this meeting today and thereby underscoring the urgency that we all feel in the need to help the Lebanese people. And we very much are supportive of this multilateral effort through the UN system. Second, together with all other parties, Austria stands in solidarity with Lebanon and is ready to actively assist in mitigating the humanitarian consequences of this tragedy. And we will do that bilaterally, as well as through the EU, through funds, and also efforts such as the EU urban search and rescue teams, which are coordinated through the European Civil Protection Mechanism. In addition to the humanitarian efforts and support that Austria provides to Lebanon, also in the context of the Syria crisis project, Austria will contribute 1 million euros to the Lebanese Red Cross and through the IFRC and through Austrian NGOs that work in Lebanon on the ground. Furthermore, Austria is currently preparing the provision of in-kind assistance of medical and other supplies, and we would actually welcome a detailed needs assessment in order to provide further very targeted humanitarian assistance. Finally, let me just also conclude with our full support for Lebanon, and we stand with you in these terrible, difficult times.
Thank you. Next, for the State of Palestine, the Permanent Observer, Excellency Riyad Mansour. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark, for organizing this meeting, for your briefing, and for all the briefers from the United Nations family, along with the presence and the briefing of the Secretary General and the President of the General Assembly. The State of Palestine is in a situation that the tragedy of Lebanon is our tragedy. The pain of Lebanon is our pain. And we conveyed these things at all levels. I conveyed it at the level of my sister Amal Mdallah immediately. Our president reflected that by declaring a day of mourning in all parts of the land of the State of Palestine, We stand with Lebanon shoulder to shoulder during this tragedy. All of our capabilities as Palestinian people, leadership and government is at the disposal of the Lebanese people, and we have been instructed, all of our embassies throughout the whole world, to coordinate with our brothers and sisters, ambassadors of Lebanon, in mobilizing the full capability of our communities with their talent, creativity in the medical field, the construction field, the development field, the financial fields, to be with Lebanon and to mobilize this private sector along with civil society efforts to deal with the challenges of the catastrophe immediately, and also to be part with Lebanon in the reconstruction stage as we move forward. Lebanon is hosting generously hundreds of thousands of Palestine refugees for more than 70 years. Your tragedy is our tragedy. Your pain is our pain. The loaf of bread that we eat, we share it with you. Lebanon has a huge part in the hearts and minds of all Palestinians everywhere, and we will be with you all the way from now until you reach full recovery. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. Next, the Executive Director of UNICEF, Henrietta Fore. Henrietta, please go ahead.
Mark, hi, thank you very much. I join everyone who is expressing in our family the shock and the sadness for last Tuesday's explosions in Beirut. To Ambassador Amal, our deep condolences and our commitment to you and to your country. The human toll is breathtaking, and we are deeply concerned that children may be among the injured, the missing, or the dead, and up to 100,000 girls and boys may be among those whose homes were damaged or destroyed. Sadly, UNICEF was not spared. One of our colleagues in Beirut lost his spouse. 7 staff were injured, and dozens of our personnel's home were damaged. At least 16 primary healthcare facilities and maternal, immunization, and newborn centers have been damaged, affecting services for nearly 126,000 people. 2 hospitals in Beirut were destroyed, as well as the Lebanese Red Cross Center, an ambulance fleet, and a children's hospital in the Quarantina area. Remaining hospitals are overstretched and falling short of critical supplies. 10 containers of personal protective equipment were lost. And 5 out of 7 UNICEF-supported cold rooms were destroyed in the blast, affecting critical vaccination programs. But in the face of this unfolding horror for Beirut, the humanitarian system has come together quickly and in a coordinated way, and we thank you, Mark and OCHA. We're working shoulder to shoulder to assess the damage done to schools, water systems, and infrastructure across Beirut. We're supporting survivors with urgent health, water, protection services, counseling, and other support. We've managed to rescue about 90% of the vaccines stored in the damaged port warehouse. And we're working to scale up emergency cash assistance to families in urgent need of housing and other essentials. The road to recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction will be long, but as you have heard from WFP and you are hearing from UNICEF and UNHCR, the young people of Lebanon are rolling up their sleeves to help. So for all of our agencies, scaling up effective and sustained response demands the urgent global support and generosity that we are hearing today. We will come together as a global humanitarian community to address the short and long-term needs and support the people of Lebanon through this heartbreaking moment in your history. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the Deputy Permanent Representative for the United Arab Emirates, Amira Al-Faiti, please.
Excellencies, colleagues, our hearts go out to the people of Beirut and Lebanon. In a year of extraordinary sadness, last Tuesday is newly devastating. Beirut is one of the most beloved cities in the world, a place that has captured the Arab imagination for generations. It's the source of hundreds of thousands of family connections with the UAE alone. The resilience of Lebanese people is legendary, but this is clearly a moment when international support is essential. I'm honored that the UAE was able to partner with the World Health Organization and Red Crescent movement on the shipment of 30 tons of trauma and surgical kits and other medical supplies from Dubai immediately after the explosion, and that 2 additional flights with 51 tons of aid from the UAE government were delivered over the next 3 days. Through a donation from our First Lady, Sheikha Fatima bint Mubarak, and the work of Emirates Red Crescent, future support is being prepared, including a new shipment in 2 days. We will also continue to partner and coordinate with the UN and humanitarian community. We very much appreciate the leadership and resolve shown in Paris yesterday, as well as the immediate and brave response of humanitarian workers on the ground. We in the UAE stand with the people of Lebanon as they recover from this tragedy and are committed to the international relief effort. I thank you.
Thank you. Next, Indonesia, Deputy Permanent Representative Mohammed Koba, please.
Thank you, USG Lowcock. On behalf of the Indonesian government and people, I want to express to the government and people of Lebanon the deepest condolences and sympathies on the loss of life and devastation caused by the explosion at the city of Beirut port last week. The people of Indonesia stands by in solidarity with the people of Lebanon and extend its support and assistance in the aftermath of this tragic incident. We note that urban and research and rescue operations have been underway in the aftermath of the explosion. Our troop, the Indonesia's Garuda contingent, who is part of the UNIFIL, has been assisting in the post-explosion handling, including the evacuation of the victims. We recognize the overwhelming concern on the economy and food security for the people of Lebanon, who have relied on Beirut port as their lifeline. The impact of COVID-19 also has made it more difficult for households to sustain their livelihoods. We also recognize that Lebanon has taken a large amount of refugees and displaced people from other nations. Indonesia greatly appreciates the UN in Lebanon for rapidly stepping up its effort despite suffering direct impact themselves. We support its effort to coordinate and work together with the government of Lebanon to create stability, safety, and security, especially food security. Be assured that Indonesia remains steadfast in its commitment to provide humanitarian support for the Lebanese people in this moment of difficulty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, for China, Minister Councillor Luo Jin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lowcock. Excellencies, I deliver this message on behalf of our PR Ambassador Zhang Jun, who could not personally be here right now because of another meeting. We thank Secretary General and the President of General Assembly for their participation of this meeting this morning and their keynote message. We also thank the UN Deputy Special Coordinator, RC and HC, Lakdi, and Ambassador Mudalali for their briefings. We commend UN agencies and personnel for their swift response in support of Lebanon and Lebanese people in this extremely difficult time. China stands in solidarity with the Lebanese government and Lebanese people. After the tragic explosion in the port of Beirut, China's peacekeeping troops to Lebanon has immediately formed an emergency medical team and rushed to Beirut to provide help. And China has also launched an emergency response mechanism. We commit to provide $1 million emergency humanitarian assistance in cash to Lebanon in support of the injured people and the families who suffered huge damage and lost home. We pray for speedy recovery for all the people injured. We believe with the support of the international community, the brave Lebanese people will overcome this catastrophe. Thank you, Mr. Lowcock.
Thank you. Next, we have the High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi. Filippo, can you hear us? Go ahead, please. Okay, we'll try and resolve whatever that is, and we'll move on.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, Filippo, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, my mistake. I want to join all those who have expressed condolences and solidarity, obviously, but also join Henrietta on behalf of the rest of the UN system in thanking you, Mark and OCHA, for your coordination. Now, the UN refugee organizations, UNHCR and UNRWA, have a very close and long-standing association with Lebanon. As many of you have already mentioned, Lebanon is a country that has hosted Palestinian and other refugees for decades, most recently, as we all know, from Iraq and Syria. It is now time to support the Lebanese in their hour of need. In Lebanon, UNHCR has one of its largest operations globally. About 650 colleagues that are now involved in the common relief effort and available to do more to pursue the goals that we have spoken about today. We have already mobilized together with the UN and other humanitarian partners, and I am planning to visit Beirut and Lebanon next week to support the ongoing response. Our response, the UNHCR response, I would like to stress, covers therefore the entire community, including Lebanese nationals, refugees, and migrant workers. And given the centrality of the shelter emergency, which has been mentioned many times, our immediate priority is to help about 10,000 vulnerable households repair their homes and make them safe. We are providing people with emergency weatherproofing, plastic sheeting, timber, plywood, and tools. And we will support additional rehabilitation work through both cash and in-kind assistance. We are also, like others, drawing on our existing networks of outreach volunteers and other partnerships to step up our community support, including psychological first aid, connecting vulnerable people with the right services and supporting community solidarity initiatives. We will also step up our existing hotlines and case management systems to provide individual assistance, including, importantly, legal support. And naturally, to conclude, and echoing what many others have said, while we concentrate on this emergency, let us not forget that Lebanon is affected by the COVID pandemic and continues to host hundreds of thousands of Syrian and other refugees. And all these responses, often underfunded, require our sustained attention and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Saudi Arabia, Deputy Permanent Representative Khalid Al-Manzowi, please go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, we express our deep condolences and sympathies to the people of Lebanon for the painful disaster that occurred in Beirut port. We in Saudi Arabia stand with Lebanon to overcome this horrific explosion and multitude of victims and destruction and left in its wake. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was among the first countries to send assistance in response to this tragic explosion. I would like to elaborate that the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, ordered the creation and construction of an air bridge through the King Salman Humanitarian Aid Relief Center to provide essential aid to the Lebanese people. Moreover, 4 planes have reached Beirut, carrying a total of 290 tons of medical equipment, food supplies, and housing material. This is an addition to the center relief efforts in Beirut, where they distributed food basket to the victims. In conclusion, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia values the UN efforts to stand together in solidarity to emphasize of the stringent need aimed at assisting Lebanon out of this crisis. Saudi Arabia appreciates the efforts of international community to respond to provide the essential humanitarian aid to the Lebanese people and assist in enabling them to have hope for prosperity and development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Canada, the Chargé d'Affaires, Richard Arbeiter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Undersecretary General. Let me also share my heartfelt condolences on behalf of all Canadians to the victims of last week's tragic explosion. Canadians, including hundreds of thousands of Lebanese origin, have been connecting with their families, their friends, their colleagues, and their partners in Beirut, a demonstration of the deep and long-standing ties between Lebanon and Canada. My thoughts go as well to our dear friend and colleague Ahmed, Ambassador Moudalale, and all of the staff at the Lebanese Permanent Mission who have our support. I would also like to extend our deepest sympathies to UN personnel and their families who were affected, including the 22 peacekeepers from Bangladesh injured while serving with UNIFIL, and to Germany and the Netherlands for the loss of their embassy colleagues. To support the people of Lebanon, Canada announced last week it is providing up to $5 million in humanitarian assistance, with $1.5 million going immediately to the Lebanese Red Cross and other trusted humanitarian organizations. As part of this commitment, Canada announced on Saturday the launch of a Beirut matching fund to help Canadians mobilize resources. Through this mechanism, the Government of Canada will match up to a maximum of $2 million every donation made by individual Canadians. Canada's contribution will help support emergency medical services and provide shelter, food, and other essential items. We have taken careful note of the information shared to help inform our collective continued response, and would like to thank Ms. Rushdie and Executive Director Beasley for the information provided in the briefing today. We will continue to work with our partners, the international community and civil society, to identify how we can support urgent needs. We will also continue to support the Lebanese people and their demands for fundamental reforms and effective and accountable governance structures to ensure full accountability for the explosion, to fairly and honestly manage Beirut's recovery and reconstruction, and to respond effectively to the multiple other crises facing Lebanon. We stand together with the people of Lebanon in mourning, but also in solidarity, as they work to heal, overcome this tragedy, and rebuild the city of Beirut that we all know and love. Thank you. Je vous remercie.
Next, Poland, Deputy Permanent Representative Mateusz Sakowicz.
Undersecretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me start off by joining previous distinguished speakers in expressing Poland's heartfelt and deepest condolences to the people of Lebanon. Poland is deeply moved by the recent tragedy, having touched upon Beirut, and stands ready to support Lebanon in this difficult time and by engaging in assistance to victims affected by the blast. Being fully aware how dire the situation has become, combining the latest explosion with all the challenges of economic crisis and coronavirus pandemic, Poland has reacted immediately. Just the day after the tragedy happened, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jacek Czaputowicz, spoke to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lebanon, Mr. Charbel Web, offering Polish engagement and help. On the 5th of August, a special rescue mission was sent from Poland that includes members of State Fire Brigade, Special Search and Rescue, 43 rescuers, dogs, medical personnel, and humanitarian assistance experts from the Polish Center for International Aid. At the same time, Poland sent medicines and other medical equipment necessary to provide first aid. To diminish hardship Lebanon is currently facing, Poland also fully supports this friendly country in struggles to mitigate the consequences of the Syrian crisis. Our mission in Beirut stays in contact with the assistance coordinator as well as with the Lebanese officials, and we work on our possibilities of providing aid to Lebanon. To conclude, I would like to underscore that Lebanon has been and remains a priority country for Polish development cooperation. I thank you.
Thank you. Next, Deputy Permanent Representative for Portugal, Nuno Matias.
Thank you, Mark. I thank you and OCHA for this briefing. On behalf of the government and people of Portugal, I wish to reiterate our deep condolences and solidarity to the families of the victims and with the people in government of Lebanon. Portugal stands with you in this dire moment. And in this context, we will anticipate our contribution to serve, aiming at a greater flexibility of that fund in allocating resources to the most immediate needs. Portugal also offered, in the framework of the European Union Civil Protection Mechanism, a team of 42 elements with expertise in search and rescue and monitoring of air quality, as well as a medical team. They are in standby, ready to travel according to the needs of the Lebanese authorities. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Next, for the Republic of Korea, Councillor Byung-Seok Yoo. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Lowcock. I would like to join others on behalf of my ambassador who couldn't be here due to other engagement in thanking the Secretary General and OCHA for convening this important and timely briefing today. Korea would also like to express our deepest sympathy and condolences for the loss of many people in Beirut caused by the horrific explosions, as well as our solidarity with the Lebanese in overcoming this tragedy and restoring their livelihood. In this spirit, the Korean government decided last Friday to contribute $1 million in emergency humanitarian assistance to Lebanon. Furthermore, we are planning to provide additional $3 million to assist Lebanon's efforts to tackle COVID-19, as well as to support the Syrian refugees in Lebanon. In closing, we would like to take this opportunity to reiterate our support to Lebanon and sincerely hope that this humanitarian assistance would help the affected people swiftly recover from the damage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Morocco, Chargé d'Affaires Omar Kadiri.
Thank you very much. I would like to express our thanks to all the briefers as well to the distinguished PR of Lebanon for their excellent presentations and moving interventions. Allow me to express our gratitude to OCHA for organizing this extremely timely and much needed briefing following the tragic explosion that occurred in the port of Beirut, causing casualties and thousands of injured, as well as a huge infrastructure and material damage. This meeting demonstrates the international community's solidarity with Lebanon, who, in addition, is combating, like the rest of the world, the disastrous effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the tragedy of the explosion in the port of Beirut, His Majesty King Mohammed VI expressed to His Excellency, Michel Aoun, President of the Lebanese Republic, on His Majesty's behalf and that of the Moroccan people, the condolences and sincere feelings of compassion and solidarity with Lebanon in these difficult times, assuring His Excellency, the President of Lebanon, that the Kingdom of Morocco stands steadfastly by the brotherly Lebanese people. As a testimony of Morocco's solidarity with our Lebanese brothers and sisters in these difficult times, and taking into consideration the historical ties between our two countries, Morocco, upon high instructions of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, has immediately sent emergency humanitarian aid to Lebanon in order to assist in overcoming the challenges and difficulties caused by this tragic explosion. In this regard, upon high instruction of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, a military field hospital was deployed and is already operational in Beirut and is providing emergency medical care to the populations injured in this incident. This field hospital is made up of 150 people, including 45 doctors from various specialties, ICU specialists, surgeons, traumatologists, ENT specialists, ophthalmologists, burn treatment specialists, neurosurgeons, pediatricians, and pharmacists, as well as specialized nurses and support staff. The field hospital is composed, inter alia, of an operating room, hospitalization, radiology, and sterilization units, a laboratory, and a pharmacy. The assistance provided by Morocco also includes more than 10 tons of medicines and first aid drugs, 10 tons of medical equipment, 295 tons of food products, as well as tents and blankets to accommodate the victims of this tragedy. It also comprises 11 tons of preventive medical equipment against COVID-19, including protective masks, visors, coats, and hydroalcoholic gel. Moroccan aid was delivered last Friday to the Lebanese authorities in Beirut through airlift organized by Morocco by 6 military and civilian Moroccan airplanes. Finally, I would like to reiterate Morocco's full and unwavering solidarity, as well as continued commitment to stand with and support Lebanon in these trying times. This is the time for action and for showing support to Lebanon. This is why I take this opportunity to strongly call on the international community, individually and collectively, to generously support Lebanon and respond to its urgent needs, including by providing emergency relief and humanitarian assistance, as well as contributing to reconstruction and rebuilding efforts of Beirut. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Malta, Darren Camilleri.
I thank you for giving me the floor, Under Secretary General Lowcock, and I also thank you, Doctor, for convening this scientific briefing on the humanitarian situation in Lebanon. I also thank the briefers for sharing their valuable insights with us today. Malta is deeply saddened by the shocking news of the explosions in the city of Beirut last week. In this calamity, the government of Malta has swiftly allocated a portion of its humanitarian aid towards the emergency response in Beirut. On behalf of my country, I would like to pay tribute to the UN and all humanitarian actors involved, as well as Lebanese first responders, including firefighters and healthcare workers, for their efforts in the rescue operation. I also take this opportunity to reassert Malta's compassion and unwavering solidarity with the people of Lebanon and to extend our deepest sympathies to the families of the victims. I thank you.
Thank you. Next, Germany, First Chancellor Oliver Gensler.
Thank you very much, Under Secretary General, and many thanks for organizing the briefing today. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me, first of all, on behalf of the German government, to extend our deepest condolences to all affected by the tragic events in Beirut. Our thoughts are very much in Beirut during these difficult times. It is an encouraging sign that less than a week after the explosion, the international community came together to pledge more than 250 million euro in support of the Lebanese people. This is very promising and an important first step. However, dispersing the money efficiently will require strong coordination efforts. We therefore very much welcome Audra's briefing today and are determined to support the important coordination role of the United Nations in this setting. Germany has acted swiftly in immediately sending a team from our Federal Agency for Technical Support, THW, as well as providing 1.5 million euro to the German Red Cross for emergency aid. As announced yesterday, we will be providing an additional 10 million euro of emergency aid for the most urgent needs in Lebanon. This money will be going to UN agencies, the International Red Cross, Red Crescent movement, and NGOs. And in addition to already being the second largest bilateral donor to Lebanon, Germany will be providing another additional 10 million euro in development aid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we can hear from the Regional Director for the World Health Organization, Ahmed Saleem Al Mandari. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. Sorry for the delay in responding back. I just echo what have been said, words of thanks to you personally, to the other UN agencies who helped and supported in convening this important meeting, and to convey WHO condolences to Excellency Ambassador and all Lebanese for what has happened last week. WHO remains concerned about the health and well-being of people who have been injured, lost loved ones, and become displaced. We are also worried about the overall state of the healthcare system and health workforce in the country. This was already under severe strain from a socio-economic crisis, civil strife, and COVID, and now has lost the full capacity of 5 hospitals, many health clinics, and tons of medical supplies. To meet immediate needs, we have distributed trauma and surgical supplies for 2,000 patients in 10 hospitals and are shipping a US 1.7 million worth of PPE items to support COVID-19 and humanitarian supplies that were destroyed by the blast. We are also working closely with national health authorities to enhance trauma care, coordinate assessment and response, mitigate COVID-19 impact, address psychological needs, and facilitate the rapid restoration of damaged healthcare facilities. We have issued an appeal of a US 76 million and asked for more solidarity and support so we can promote health, rebuild Lebanese infrastructure, and keep the country safe from COVID-19 and other diseases. We have mobilized a team of experts from the 3 levels of the WHO, regional level headquarters, as well as from the country level by mobilizing national resources. A team is going there, arrived today from the regional office and will be supported by headquarter office for the sake of the Lebanese and healthcare system there in Lebanon. I thank you, Sachi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, UNFPA, Andrew Saberton.
Thank you, Undersecretary Lowcock. UNFPA expresses its solidarity with the people of Lebanon and all impacted by this devastating disaster. UNFPA is focused on meeting the immediate sexual and reproductive health needs of the most vulnerable women and adolescent girls. Of the 300,000 displaced people, nearly 84,000 are women of reproductive age and 48,000 are adolescent girls. Around 3,500 women are currently pregnant and 400 babies may be expected to be born over this next month. With many health facilities damaged or destroyed, UNFPA is working with the government, our further UN organizations, our partners, NGOs and others to provide life-saving reproductive health services, including maternal health care. We are deploying additional midwives and other health personnel. Only yesterday, we distributed personal protective equipment to the Ministry of Public Health. We are procuring more PPE and reproductive health supplies, medical equipment and drugs to save lives. The Joint Rapid Needs Assessment of health facilities will enable us to further improve provision of essential services. In the coming days, we will be delivering 85,000 sanitary packs from our warehouses in Beirut and 40,000 dignity kits with hygiene items included. We are coordinating prevention and response to gender-based violence and sexual exploitation abuse, which has increased during COVID-19 and may be further exacerbated now. We are deploying GBV specialists addressing mental health issues and providing case management and psychosocial support. Of the joint flash appeal, UNFPA requires $13.9 million to address the life-saving needs of women and girls. Thank you for your support to UNFPA and our partners in supporting the people of Lebanon. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have the UN representative for the International Council of Women, Elizabeth Carl.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. On behalf of ICW, we are appreciative of this opportunity for NGOs to speak at such an important meeting, and very heartened to hear about the wonderful work and support on behalf of women and children, which are critical at this vulnerable time. We are especially cognizant of the difficulties within Lebanon, a country that we have worked closely with, and in fact, ICW has national councils in 64 countries, including Lebanon, and we are the oldest country to provide women's rights support. So we appreciate all that has been done. We also commend the rapid response of the UN in this time of difficulty. The UN has obviously had many difficulties and criticisms, and these kinds of opportunities are wonderful to showcase the work of the UN and the importance of its work bilaterally, multilaterally, as well as WHO. We'd like to thank this opportunity and also point out in their recovery, as often Lebanon has risen from the ashes, that it is important to include women in leadership in the recovery process. One only has to look at the wonderful opportunities when women have led countries with regard to the coronavirus recovery to show the expertise. So we look forward to the inclusion of women in the recovery process to build back better. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'm conscious that we've run a little bit more than an hour over time now, and thank you for your patience. We have heard from everybody who registered to speak through the electronic system we set up. I understand there may have been one or two others who wanted to be added. If you would like your remarks recorded, if you send them to my office, we will put them on the website with the other records of the meeting. But thank you all very much indeed for your engagement today and for your support in the international community's efforts to support the people of Lebanon at this difficult time. That concludes the meeting. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you.
Amal, thank you. Thank you.
As-salam.
Congratulations for this excellent meeting.
Thank you, Amal. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone. Ma-as-salama.
Masalama. Masalama.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Bye.
Thank you, Amal. Bye-bye.
Thank you.